Alright guys, so today we're going to do two major things, okay? Two major improvements to our code bug fixer application that we did last time, okay? And from the next lecture, we'll start working also with TK Inter, okay? So, is it working the door or, okay. So, what are we going to do today? The first task that you're going to complete today is to learn how you can deploy a web application, so everybody can access it, okay? And the second thing that we're going to do today is we're going to integrate a payment service with the code bug fixer application that you already have, okay? So let's do that. Now, firstly, I have some introductory slides to the payment service that we're going to do, and after that, I will show you how you can deploy your app. All right. Okay, so for the payment service in your application, we're going to use Stripe. Guys, listen, it's interesting, you know. But after that, if you have questions, you know, you can ask. Okay, so the tool that we're going to use to do the payment service is called Stripe. And Stripe is, you can imagine it, it's again an API, just like ChatGPT, where you can do requests. So you can request a payment, so you can add your debit card details, and then there will be a response with the successful payment, okay? So you can create an account in Stripe, and I will show you how you can do that, okay? And once you have an account, you can put their API into your Python code, so you can create pages where any person that goes to your website, they can click, put their card details, and in a secured way, they can purchase your service. Okay, in the Stripe website, you have a very nice user interface where you can see graphs of who bought what, were there any refunds, and so on. Okay, so this is really useful for any SaaS application. Okay, so when we use Stripe, there are two types of API keys. Okay, so you know, with the ChatGPT API, so far we're having only one key. This is our API key that authenticates us when we use the API. With Stripe, we have two keys. We have one publishable key, okay, and you also have one secret key. The secret key, instead of secret key, we're going to use test key because we don't want to make actual purchases while I'm showing you the application, right? We want to just test it. But normally the publishable key is something that you put in your front-end code, okay? So when the users use your front-end in the application, they use this key in order to make a payment, and then you have a secret key, which is actually your authentication key that identifies your account, okay? Yeah, so as you can see, with Stripe, you can do all of those services within your application. So you can identify different users, right? You can get their emails and their contact information while they're doing the payment, which is something very valuable when you're creating your own business, right? You want your user details and you want to hold them, so then when you want to send them emails or some promotions, you can use those emails. Especially valuable are those users that they already paid for your service, because if they paid once, maybe they will pay again in the future, right? So with Stripe, you can collect user information, right? You can track the user activity on your application as well. You can see what user purchased what, okay? And you can save this information. As I said, you can count the activity, you can count the number of usages, and so on. So actually in our application today, what we are going to do is we are going to let the users use the application for free in the beginning. So I will do it like this. I will let the users use my application 3 times, so they get the feel how it works. Once they do that, then I will redirect them to a Stripe page where they will be able to actually pay money in order to continue use the application. Okay? And finally, obviously, you can use Stripe to build users, which we already talked about. So this will be a very simple table of payments that we can apply to our app. So our goal is going to be to build 3 of those windows, and then create 3 different plans. Okay, we can create monthly plan, quarterly plan, and annual plan. And then the user will be able to buy whatever plan they like. Okay, so we have this on our application. Any questions so far? Okay, so there is another question that is coming here. So how are we identifying the users, especially when we want to count how many times they used our application? How do we know which user is who? We can use many different approaches to do that. We can use their IP address, right? We can use their browser session, okay? So in this particular situation, I will show you a very simple technique to build a browser ID. So we're going to collect some parameters of the user browser from which they access our application. And with those parameters, we're going to build a unique ID for every user that accesses our application. Then I will create a usage counter. So this will be a variable that tracks how many times the user used our application and called the ChatGPT API. And then I will collect them into a very simple database. Okay, it's nothing too complicated. So it's the most simple version of a database. So we're going to have a browser ID and then a usage counter. And we're going to use both of those parameters to identify people and how many times they use the app. Okay. So that's everything. As I said, the first thing that we will be doing today is, in fact, deploying our application. Okay. So I will show you how to do this in a second. You can load your computers, laptops, PCs, and then we can start. Okay, so if you go in Blackboard, there is on topic 3 a file called deploy flask app. Okay, I will go there now and I'll show you. Okay, so if you go here on topic 3, you can see this document. It's called deploy flask app. Okay, you can click on it, and here you will find all the instructions that you need to deploy your Flask application anywhere. And I will show you right now. I advise you to do it at the same time that I do it, so we can all deploy our applications and you can make sure that you can do this activity. Alright, so what you need to do is, firstly, you need to go to a website called pythonanywhere.com. Okay, so please go on this website. Okay, so once you go to the website, you're going to see a window similar to this one. Okay, so this is pythonanywhere.com, and here you can use that to easily deploy any Python SaaS application. Okay, so I also follow the instructions with you just to make sure they work. So the first thing you need to do is obviously to create an account. Okay, so I'll click here start, okay, and then I'll select create a beginner account. Okay, so here you can add your credentials, username, password, email. You can use your university email, and just make sure that you register right now. Okay, while you do that, I will log into my account. All right, so guys, once you register, make sure that you go to the dashboard. Okay, so make sure that you see this. Yeah, so you just need to go again to pythonanywhere.com, and it will send you directly to your dashboard after you logged in. Okay, okay guys, so now let's deploy our application, right? This is our goal. So for those of you that last lesson were able to code with me their application, you can try with it. If you don't have the code bug fixer we did last time, you can download it from Blackboard. Okay, it doesn't matter. So I will show you. I will just download it from Blackboard. Okay, and I will show you the whole process for deploying it. So here I am in Blackboard. So for those of you that already have the project on their laptop, they don't need to do anything. For those of you that don't have the Code Bug Fixer app on their laptops, they just need to download it. Okay, so what I will do is I will go here and I will click on the code bug fixer.zip and I will simply extract it. Okay, so this is the code bug fixer we did last time, right? So the only file that you need to modify is the API key file. So this is the complete project. I just need to open it and modify the API key. So I will just open the project, as you can see, in PyCharm or any other editor. Okay, this is the project we did last time. And then I will just go to config.py and change the API key with the API key that is on Blackboard. This is the only thing that I will do. Okay, so before copying the key, let me create a new one, so just to make sure that it works. Okay, so guys, I just updated the API key in the Blackboard. Okay, so what you need to do is to simply get the project, okay, open it, and then go to config.py and change the API key to the new API key, okay, so it works. All right, so even before going to the website to deploy your application, download the project and only in the config.py put the new API key. That is right now on the Blackboard under Lecture 1 documents. Okay? Alright, so once you have the project, make sure that you know where the folder of the project is, right? So you can see that I just got the Code Bug Fixer application and I can see here all the files, everything I need. Okay? So once you have access to the folder with all the files, then we can go back to pythoneverywhere.com. Okay, so then the next thing you need to do is from your dashboard, okay, go to Open Web App. Okay, so let's do that. And once you click on Open Web App, choose Add New Web App. Okay. Then let's click here on Next. Here I'm going to click on Flask and then Python 3.10. You can also follow the guide. Those instructions are there as well. And after that, just click Next. Okay. So this is how the new app looks like that you created. Now the only thing we need to do here is to add our files. And once we do that, we will have the app accessible from the internet. Okay, so before moving forward, make sure that you see this page, and then when you click this link right here, okay, you see hello from Flask. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna go around, and what we want to see now is everybody seeing this page, and when you click on the link, you see hello Flask. So you were able to create a basic Flask application. Now let's see how we can actually put your own app there. Okay, there are a few steps, so bear with me. Okay, so as I said, I'm also using the notes because you cannot remember everything all the time. That's why I made the notes, also for you, but also for me. And the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to go down here, okay, and I'm going to click on this mpyanev, or for you it's going to be different, but it's pythonanywhere.com wsgi.py file. Okay, so what you need to do, scroll down and go right to this file. Now, why we need to go to this file? So this file is running the app.py file, okay? So this file is used as a driver. Now, the problem is that when we created our application, our app file is not called app.py, but it's called flask_app.py. So what I need to do is just to rename that to the name of our executable file. So I will rename that to app.py. Okay? So from Flask app, now here is just app. I will just move it a little bit closer so you can see. Okay, this is how it looks like. So then once I do that, I click save. Okay, so our changes are saved. Now let's go back. Okay, and then the next task. So actually, did you all change the WSGI file? Who didn't change it yet? I'll wait. Is there somebody that haven't changed the WSGI file? Okay, so make sure that once you do that, now you're again to our page that we start from. Okay, so we're again here. Now the next thing that we want to do is to add our code. So I'm gonna select this one right here. Okay, source. And I will do go to directory. Okay. Okay. So again, you go in front of source code and you go to directory. Okay. So once you do that, the next thing I'm gonna do is I will click open bash console here. Okay, I'll click this tab. Why do we need to open bash console? Any ideas? So we need to open the console because we need to install all the libraries, just like how we do in our project. We did pipe install Flask, pipe install OpenAI, right? So we need to do the same thing here. So this is the web console of our project. Okay? Those are steps that are actually applicable to literally any type of deployment service that you assess, whether you're using Azure or Google Cloud or AWS. The process is very similar. Okay, so now you go to a console, which is exactly like the console that we have on our laptop. Okay, when we assess the project and install the libraries. Okay, as you can see. So now let's install. So I will do pipe install OpenAI, and then I will do pipe install Flask. Alright, you're going to see something a little bit different because you already have the requirements installed. That's why you can see this line here. But since you're going to install them fresh, you never installed those libraries in your app, you're going to see something a little bit different. It's still good. So actually all of you are going to get an error when you install OpenAI, but this is not a critical error, okay? So your application will still be able to run. Of course, the reason, who can guess what the reason is? The reason is we're using Python 3.10, which is a fixed Python version, which is a little bit older, and that's why you're getting this error, but it is not critical. Okay, so everybody installed everything? Alright, I see black screens with everything. Alright, so let's move next. Now, once we have the libraries installed, the final step is obviously to get our files to our application. So, let's do that, right? Now, you can see that here in this area, so I just went back from the console, and you can see that in this area, we can actually add files. So I'm just going to add the files from our project. It's that simple. So I will click here, upload file. Okay. I will go to my project, and firstly I will add the app.py file. I will click OK. I will then do that again. I will add my config.py file as well. Okay. Now, once I do that, because index.html is in a folder, in the templates folder, I will need to create that folder. I can do that by this tab right here. So I'll create a new directory called templates. Okay, so I will click new directory. Okay, and as you can see, once you click this button, then you create a new directory and you go inside it. So now I am in the templates directory and there are no files there. So I will just click upload file right here and I will find my index.html file. And then I will click open, and now my index file is inside the templates folder. Okay, so you can see that we have exactly the same project structure. So I have the app.py and the config.py in my main directory. Then inside the templates directory I have the index.html file. Alright, so once we have all that set, now we should be able to run our project. Okay, so I'll go here and you can just actually go back. Actually it's easier just to go to on the dashboard and then click your web app here. Now the next thing I need to do is simply to click here reload. Okay, that will reload all the code base and will deploy the app. Okay, so let's do that. So now it's loading and let's see if it is going to work. Okay, so now it works, right? Now if you go to mpyanev12.pythonanywhere.com, you will be able to also see this application even though you're not inside my computer, right? So it should be working the same in your way. Okay, so try that and let's see if it works. Is there a question here? So guys, if you just try it in your project, it's not working, I think we just did a little trouble, let's say, to the server of pythoneverywhere.com because there were too many people accessing it at the same time. Okay, but all of you had the right steps, so you know how to deploy applications now there. Most probably when you try it a little bit later, it will all work. Okay, so this is how you can deploy applications. So any application that you do with Flask or any other Python framework, also with Django, you can deploy it in exactly the same way so everybody can access it. So for those of you that the things worked and you can see the application, right, you can share the link with your friends and you can show them that now there is an application that works. For those of you, I know that there are two of you that didn't work because of the server overload. The other people can give you some of their links, right? So you can also share them with whoever you want, right? Because you are helping each other. Okay? All right. So now the next thing, as I said, that we're going to do is how you can actually add payment service to your AI application. I will actually turn off the light so you can see a little bit better. Or maybe it's just good like last time. It's just gonna be like we're in a cinema, right? Okay. So the first thing that I will show you is how you can actually register for Stripe. And next, I will show you how you can update your application. Okay, so for now, again in Blackboard, I'm going to upload my Stripe API key. So you can use it and you don't need to create an account and all those things. Okay, so now in Blackboard, I uploaded the public key and the Stripe test key that I have. But if you want to create a Stripe account, it's actually very easy. Okay, so if I go here on stripe.com, you can create a Stripe account, of course, just like any other registration. Okay, so when you create your account, after that, you will be able to get your API keys. So let's say if I sign in, this is how the Stripe dashboard looks like. So it shows all of your sales, what subscriptions you have, are there any payment reports, and so on. Okay, normally you can access your keys here, as you can see on the right side. I can see the Stripe publishable key and the secret key. Okay, so those are normally the keys that you would use in your applications. But anyways, this is just for your information. And now let's get to coding. So for this project, I will actually put directly the bits of code that are new, okay, and then I'm going to explain them. So the best way to deal with this project, actually there are two ways for you to deal with this project. Have the chapter 3 code bug fixer that we did last time opened, and then I will show you how to add the different elements and explain them to you. Okay. The other way is to simply download the chapter 4 code bug fixer with everything already written. Okay, and then I will explain you still what each bit of code is doing. Okay, it's entirely up to you. So you can go to Blackboard and download whichever version you prefer. Okay, so the only major changes that we're going to be doing we'll do on the app.py. Okay, so there we're going to add a few elements. So we're going to add a few functions. One of them is going to initialize our database, another one will create our browser fingerprint, and so on. So obviously the very first step is going to be to go to the config.py right here and add our Stripe secret key. Okay, so you can write Stripe test key. Okay, and once you do that, you can simply go to Blackboard and copy and paste it. So I'll go right here. Okay, and I'll copy the Stripe test key. Okay. Okay, and I'll put our Stripe test key right here in the config.py. Now the next thing I will do is just under the OpenAI import, now we will need to add some other libraries that we're going to use for our project. So if I do here import, I'll firstly import the hashlib, and this library I'm going to use for creating the browser fingerprint. Okay, I will also import SQLite 3. And does any one of you know what is SQLite? Anybody anybody used it? SQLite? Yeah, what it is for? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this is a lightweight database. You just import as a package and it can store data, right? Then I will import, obviously, Stripe. Okay, actually, Stripe. Obviously, you will not have Stripe installed, so you can install it by writing pipe install Stripe. So, or you can just install it from here, but what I will do is I will do pipe install Stripe. Okay, so we have it to your project. Now, once we have that, the next step would be to add our Stripe API key just how we did with the OpenAI API key. So I can do Stripe dot API key equals to config dot API key. Actually, Stripe API key, right? And this is it. Now you have Stripe plugged into your application and you can now start doing payment services. Okay. Now the next thing I will do, I will actually copy and paste this function from the other project we have. You can do exactly the same, so we don't need to write for very long. Okay. This will be the function that will initialize our database. So if you ever wondered what is the easiest way to add a database to your application, this is it. Okay. So with SQLite, you can add a database in just a few lines of code. First of all, this line right here shows that we want to connect a new database, and we're gonna call this database app.db. Okay, so what's happening when we do that? When we do that, a new file gets created in our folder, which is going to be our database. So then when we close our application, this database is still going to be in our project. Okay, this is the important part. So okay, we initialize the database. Okay, we create a new pointer to this database. So C is an object that can change things in the database. And finally, when we write c.execute, we're executing some command inside the database. And the command we're executing here is creating a fingerprint variable. Okay, that will be a primary key. And we also create a usage counter variable, just like in the table that I showed you. So we create database and we create two elements inside this database. Okay, so once we do that, we commit the changes, okay, which means we run the changes that we wrote right here, and then we close the database. Okay, we executed the information. Now the next function that we're going to add is called getFingerprint. Okay, so this function is going to create our browser fingerprint. Okay, so how is that done? Firstly, from the request that the user is doing, right, we're going to create the browser ID of that user. Okay, so every browser has its own ID. So I'm gonna get this variable and I'm gonna assign it to the variable browser. Okay, then I'm gonna get also the version of the request and I will assign it to this variable version. And finally, I will also get the platform on which the user is running. So the browser, the version, and the platform, they're all having different type of encoding, okay? So, or different type of name. So when I get all of those, now I can create a unique string specific to the browser of the user that is unique only for that user. So once I have that, I can create the fingerprint as a very long code by using a hashing function. Okay, so I'll use this hash library to encode the string. Okay, so from the names that we get for the browser, for the version, and also for the platform, we are going to create a code that will be unique for this browser. And this will be actually our browser fingerprint. Okay, I can actually show you how this works in another file just for fun. So if I create here test.py, or actually let's call it fingerprint.py, okay, and if I add this function, okay, so as you can see, if the name of our browser is, let's say, Chrome, okay, the version of the browser is 1.5 and the platform is, let's say, Orange. Okay, what's gonna be the browser fingerprint? Let's do print, or actually get fingerprint. Okay, so what would happen if I run this file? Let's see. Okay, so when I run this file and when I execute this function, obviously from those three variables that are unique for every browser, you can see that down here I got a code, so I'll just copy it and paste it here. So we have some code that is unique for the parameters of this browser. Okay, so this is what I mean. In our database, we're going to put this unique code, and near it, we're gonna put how many times this specific code used our application. So this is how we know how many times the user actually used the application. Okay? Okay, so once we initialized our database, now we have a function that can collect the fingerprint of the browser. The next step is going to be to get our usage counter, or the variable that shows how many times the user used our app, right? So let's do that. Okay, so we can do that by using this function here. So, who can tell me, guys, what is the input to this function? Any ideas? What is the input to this function? Which one? So what is the input? What do you think? Yeah, exactly. So to this function, you can see on the top, we have the fingerprint, right? Yeah. So this is going to be the input. So obviously what this function is going to be doing is creating a new entry in our database, okay? And we'll have the fingerprint added in the database, and also we'll have the usages that this fingerprint did. So how that works? Now we again connect to our database, okay? And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select the user that has a specific fingerprint. If the user that we select is equal to none, what that means? It means that this user doesn't exist in our database, right? So if we couldn't find the user, the fingerprint, this means it doesn't exist. So what we want to do if the user doesn't exist is we want to access the database, we want to add the new user, and also to add 0 usages of the application, right? So we do that, and then we close the database. That's it. Okay? And we're going to return 0. So we added the user and 0 usages for this user since it was new. If the user already existed, okay, we're simply going to add the usages, okay? We're simply going to add the user, and later you'll see in the code how we're going to increment the usages, okay? And here we return the result, okay? So, again to recap, if the user exists, we simply get the usages of that user. If it doesn't exist, we create a new user, and we add 0 usages, right? So if we create a user with 0 usages, we return 0. We return 0 usage counter. If the user existed, we get how many usages this user had, and we return that. So the result of this function is how many times our user used the application. Okay, so from here we got the usage counter, and finally, the last function that we want to add is update usage counter, okay? So we need to cover the situation where we have the user in our database, but we want to increment its usages with 1, for example. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna connect to the database, we'll find the user, okay? And we're going to add the new usage counter. So this function, we're going to select the specific user and also the number of times that the user accessed the application. Okay, and we're going to add the new number of usages. Okay, so now once we have everything all set, so we have all the functions we need, the next thing is simply to add those functions into our index page, right? So you remember in the index page what we had so far is our so initially we're showing our form where the user is allowed or able to add some code and error, And then once the user hit the button, we activate the post command. So we post everything to ChatGPT, the ChatGPT processes it, and then it gives us the response, which we print into the explanation and fixed code fields, right? But now we need to add some more things here. And those things are going to happen after the user posts the code to get fixed, right? So once the user wants to post the code or sends the code to the ChatGPT for the code to get fixed, what things do we need to do? The first thing we need to do is to make sure that we have a created database. If the database is not created, we need to create one. Another thing that we need to do is to create a new user into our database if it doesn't exist. The third task we want to do is to increment the usage counter of the user once he hits the submit button with 1. Okay, so let's do that. So firstly, I will do here initialize database. Okay. Then I will create the user fingerprint. So I will do fingerprint equals to get fingerprint, right? And then I will create a usage counter. So I will do usage counter equals to get usage counter fingerprint. Okay. Actually, we can do all of this outside our post request, right? So we can create a database, the fingerprint in the usage counter, once the user accesses the page initially. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to say if the user used our application more than 3 times, okay, I want them to pay for the service I'm providing to them. How do I do that? So I will simply do if usage counter is higher than 3, so the user used the application more than 3 times, I want to redirect the user to a new page. Okay, so I will do return render template, and I want to redirect the user to page called payments.html, right? So I want to show a new page to the user that will show him the payment methods. Okay, or payment.html. So that means now, once the user clicks the submit button, we're always going to hit this line right here. So the user will never be able to access our application if his or her usage counter is higher than 3. Okay, if the usage counter is higher than 3, we're always going to go to the payments page, so the rest of the code will be completely inaccessible for the user. Okay, but what happens if the user is a new one and his usage counter is less than 3? Well, we won't allow the user to use our app, okay? So the user is going to do the request, we'll get the explanation, then we'll get the fixed code, right? We're gonna get the code right here, okay? And the only thing I want to do is just before displaying the answers to the user, I want to increment its usage counter by 1. So I will do usage counter plus equals 1. Okay? Because the user used the application 1 time. Okay? Now for debugging purposes I can print it in the backend so I can see this in the console. And after that, I can use the function called update usage counter that we created. Okay? And there I want the unique fingerprint of the user and also the new usage counter that has been incremented. Okay? And then I'm going to display the answer to the user. Okay? So these are pretty much all the modifications that you need to do to your index page. You can see that even though these functions might look a little bit complex, once you create them, you can use them as many times as you want, right? So it is very simple. You first need to initialize the database, create the user fingerprint, and the usage counter. If the usage counter is higher than 3, you redirect to payment page. Okay? And then once you provide the response to the user, then you can increment the usage counter with 1 and add it to the database in front of the fingerprint. Okay? Any questions so far? Yes.
For every browser.
So yeah, the fingerprint will be unique for every browser session, which means that let's say if you open many windows,
Okay.
different browser windows on your computer, is going to be the same. However, if you open an incognito window,
Yeah, okay.
we start a new session, right? This is how it works in Chrome.
Okay.
So if you open an incognito window, then the user, this will not be detected, will have a new browser fingerprint. So the user will be registered with new fingerprint and have a new thing.
Because we should be
Correct?
clearing-
Correct.
Right.
That way, you can actually trick our application, even if you use the same computer, right? So this is not the best approach. Obviously, the best approach would be
Based on the IP filtration.
with the
and
IP.
conditions.
Yes, exactly. The best way to do it is going to be to also use the user IP,
Okay.
right? This is how we normally should do it. And also, you normally get some sort of combination between IP, port number, and unique browser station identifier. This is how it's done in real life. Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay, so this is everything that needs to be done in our index page. Now, the next thing that I will show you is how you can actually control the page where you charge the users. Okay, so what I want to happen is when the user wants to make a payment, we want to activate a new page, right? And we want to create a new Flask page in order to control the backend. And we can do this with this charge function right here. So what am I doing? In Flask, I create a new page. So when somebody goes to our website, let's say codebugfixer.com/charge, we will activate the code right here. Okay? So how we're going to do it in the front end is if the user accesses the charge.html page right here, or payment.html, okay, we will activate this charge page and we will display the charge page. Okay, and what will happen here? Firstly, we're going to send the amount parameter, which we'll get from our charge page. If you remember, on the charge page we had 3 subscription plans, right? So every subscription plan had a name and also amount that the user needs to pay. Okay, so once the user chooses the plan, then we activate this and we're going to collect the amount and the type of plan. Okay, and we're going to assign it to those 2 variables. Then this function right here is creating a new Stripe customer using the Stripe API. How it works? You do stripe.customer.create, okay? And then you create a customer with the user email that the user will provide, and also with a specific Stripe token, which is actually your public key, okay? So now you have the user email. They will also probably add a little bit more information. You even get access to their debit card. right? You're not going to be able to see the code or all that things, of course, but they will actually provide you also the debit card that they use for the purchase. So we have that recorded as well. But here, for creating a new customer, you will have saved the email and the customer information. Now, once you pass this customer is forever in your database. After that, here, you can create a new payment. Okay, so you have the customer recorded. Now let's create a new payment. So here you're gonna add the customer ID that you just created. Okay, you're gonna add the amount that they need to pay. Okay, you're gonna add the currency, and you're gonna add description. So the rest of the information, like debit card, any information about the card, is automated, and it will automatically show the users a window where they can add their information to purchase your product. So with this, you charge the user card when they use your app. Okay? Okay? And once that's done, we're gonna show the charge.html page, which is a page where we're gonna show something like your payment is successful and you purchased this plan, okay, and you paid this amount of money for it. Okay. So guys, I'm gonna end it here for today. What we have left is to create the front-end files. We have about 20 minutes left, but I want, once I show you how to do the front end, to also go around and make sure that everyone is able to run the application and you know how it works. And we're not gonna have time for that for sure. So we're just gonna continue next time. So next time we're gonna finish this, and also we're gonna learn about tkinter. Okay? Sound good? Do you have any questions so far for the backend? Okay. Any other questions for exams? Anything else that you would like to ask or have concerns about? All right. Well, in that case, have a good evening. You can also look at home at what we did today, right? You can look at the code. I'll upload the video on YouTube so you're able to see it as well. And next time we're going to continue with the front end, and also we're going to go over everything we discussed again, so you can have really firm knowledge about how Stripe works, and you also see the results of our work today. Okay, so thank you very much, and I will see you next week.